Hi, my name is Stewart Lynch, and this is the 5th video in the Realm+SwiftUI series. I'll be introducing you to some more core topics. We'll take a look at how we can utilize the Realm configuration to specify a different name for our default realm, and we'll be replacing an observed results property wrapper with a notification token, and use a class adhering to the observable object protocol to observe and manage changes. We'll also be using Realm's isInvalidated property to ensure smooth operation of our application. I love getting your feedback, so tap the thumbs up button if you enjoyed this video and leave a comment below. Make sure you subscribe to the video and ring that bell to get notifications of new videos. And if you want to support my work, you can buy me a coffee. For this third project in the Realm series, I'm not going to build a new application. What I'm going to do is rework the application that we created in videos 3 and 4 of this series. If you've not watched those previous videos, I recommend that you give them a look because a lot of what I'm going to be going over here will not make sense unless you understand the Realm property wrappers that we introduced in those videos. I have a couple of modifications to that completed project because I want to show you some additional things. So rather than modifying that project that you completed, I recommend that you download and start with the starter project that I'm making available here. The link's in the description below. It's almost identical, except for the changes that I've made. Here are the changes. I've added a searchable control so that we can search on our list of countries. And we covered this in the first project in video 2, along with the search completion. I've removed the text field that tells people to tap on the plus button to add a new country if there are none. And I did this because the search implementation of Searchable for Realm doesn't set the isSearchable environment property, so this presents an issue. And there's also the search filter that is used to determine the search. In the All Cities list view, I've added a country flag to the row view, so that you'll see that in just a minute. In Country Row View, I've added an auto-capitalization modifier to the text field so that I can start with a non-capitalized letter for my country name, and you'll see why I'm doing that in the demo just in a second. And additionally, I've added a new icon and a launch screen to the Assets folder so that you'll know what project we're working on when we see it in our simulator or device. Now, before I start the demo, if you download the app and it's showing some Realm errors, it's likely that the Realm package has not been updated properly from that download. You'll need to make sure that your package dependencies is showing master beside Realm and some version number 11 beside the Realm database. At the time of my creating this video, it's 11.12.0, but it's changing rapidly, so whether you have errors or not, I recommend that you right-click on that package dependencies and choose Resolve Package Versions. So let's go through a demo here. First, add 2 countries to your list of countries. For me, I'm going to add Canada first, and I'll choose a Canadian flag. For my second country, I'll enter USA, but I'm going to make sure that it's all lowercase, and I'll leave the flag untouched for now. Next, let me add some cities to each of these countries. How about for Canada, I'll add Vancouver and Toronto. And then for the US, I'll add Seattle and Denver. Now if I tap on the search field, I can search and filter on my country, so let's try Canada. Perfect, the filter narrows it down. In order to search for the USA, I see it's working because I'm using lowercase, but if I try capital USA, it doesn't. I'll need to be able to fix that, and I can't do that in the current implementation with that property wrapper. If we tap on the Cities tab now, we see that the flags are shown beside the country name. However, if I return to the Countries tab and change the name of a country and its flag, like I'm doing here for the USA, and I return to the Cities tab, those entries aren't updated. However, let me stop the app, and when I relaunch, I see those updates were indeed updated. And this is not a great user experience. I also don't like it here when I try to delete a country that has some cities. I'm told that I must first go to the Cities tab and then delete the cities before I can return to the Countries tab to delete the country. This is another lousy user experience. And finally, if I open the Services menu and check out the location of our Realm file, I see it here, and it's called Default Realm. I'm going to have a ton of default realms for my projects if I use Realm. So if I open Realm Studio first, it may be difficult for me to determine which one I'm working on, and I want to be able to specify a different name. So those are the issues that I hope to resolve in this project. I don't know about you, but I always have problems finding my app's entry point. You know, that file that is marked with the app main? I've placed it at the top, but I want to do one more thing to make it more obvious. I'm just going to rename that file itself as appentry.swift. Not the struct name, just the file name. You'll likely see this in all of my videos going forward now. It's just easier for me to spot. Now, in the last project, we created a migrator class so that we could update our schema when we added the new flag property to our countries class. I'm going to repurpose this class now as a state object so that we can manage our realm using a view model type approach for my country list view. I'm going to let the property manager manage the remaining views and leave them untouched. So I'm going to create it and inject it into the environment rather than passing it along. I can also at the same time provide a default name for the realm when I set it up so that I can specify one other than the default realm. So first, let's refactor migrator so that it is called Realm Manager. If I tap here on the comment, I'll be able to change that comment as well. The function here is going to be more than just provide a migrator. It's also going to set the name of our realm. So let's change the name of that function to initialize schema and provide a parameter called name that is going to be a string so that when we initialize this realm manager, we'll be able to pass in the name of our realm. So we can update the initializer by requiring an argument for name as a string and then call the initialize schema function in the body and pass in that name property. This class is going to be responsible for my realm-related functions. So I'll need a realm property that we can hold on to. So unlike here where we never use it, I'll create a property that is optional at first, but is then set when we set our configuration and initialize our realm. Now I only want this to be set within the initializer, but I'll be able to read it from elsewhere if necessary. So the getter will be public. Now, instead of using this try here, let's be safe, and in case it fails, we'll use a do catch block. So do realm equals try realm, and in the catch, we can print out an error that we had difficulty opening that realm, and print the error as well. Now we still haven't used that name property yet. And you may recall in the last project when we created this config, there were a lot of options. So let me option click on this and inspect the realm file to see what they are. The one that stands out for me is this one here. And it's the one that is the name of the default realm. And you can see that it's a familiar default.realm. Now it's an internal function here that is used by this class, but the entire thing is just a URL, so we can specify any location that is accessible to our application as the location for our realm. So let's just recreate this as we know for our iOS app is the doc directory. So within this function, let's create a property called docdir that is just the file manager .default.urls for in, and is for our document directory, in the user domain mask, and we'll choose the first one and force unwrap it. And then next we can append our new name with the extension .realm to this URL and use it for the Realm file URL. And finally then we can add in that new property to the initializer. Just the file URL is our Realm file URL. And while we're at it, since we're creating our document directory URL here, let's just print it out to the console from here and include the path. Now we'll be injecting this into the environment as a state object, so it must conform to the observable object protocol. Now then, I can return to our app's entry point and change this to a state object variable. And then we can pass in a name for our realm. So let's just call it example3. And then we can inject this into the environment for our content view. We won't be using it for the all cities list view. And since we're printing out that document directory URL, when we initialize that, we'll remove that print statement here because it's redundant. So let's test. When we run our app, our entries are no longer there. Let's check out and open our default realm location. I see that we now have two realms, the old one that was default.realm and our new one, the example3. So let me just copy the name for example3 and let me first delete these two files and rename our old one that has our content as example3. Let me also delete that folder and rename the default one to example3. And let me run again. We're back where we left off, but with a new realm name and prepared for our next step. But before we do that, let's add back the USA with 2 cities. What we want to do is to use this Realm Manager to monitor changes in the creation and deletion of our countries so that we are more in control and will be able to not only delete the list of cities when we delete a country, but also remove the cities from the cities table in Realm. And this is something that we couldn't do when we used the property wrapper. Now, if we remove the property wrapper from this countries list view, we'll need a way to watch for changes and react to those changes accordingly. And when we make them, we need to be able to force SwiftUI to update the view. And by doing so, if we remove this, it's going to break a number of things in our current view. So beyond just watching for changes, this property wrapper does a number of things, and that's everywhere that we use the $countries for this file. It handles searching on line 31. It handles the addition via the append function on line 43. And it deals with deletion in this function in line 71. So those are all the things that we're going to need to manage. So let's comment out the search function here first, and we'll deal with that last. It just gets in the way. So first we'll need a published property in our Realm Manager that will be monitored and force an updating of our view. After all, this is an observable object. And we'll create that as a optional property of type results for the type country. In my code, however, I want to be able to convert this into an array so that I can use a for each loop on it and manage it just like I would an array of any other type of object in Swift. So all we have to do to convert this to an array is to construct the array with the results. And if we don't have any results, we can create an empty array. So we'll create a computed property called countries array that's an array of country. And then we can use if let to see if we have our country results yet. and then return them as an array, and if not, we'll return an empty array. Next, we'll need some way of monitoring when changes are made, so that it will update our results, because these are live objects, and thus our countries array will be updated because it's a computed property. This will require a realm notification token that we can create as an optional value, and within this class, we'll be able to set it up. So first, we'll create a private variable that we'll call countries token that is an optional notification token. Next, we'll create a function that'll set up this token as an observer and update our published property whenever it observes any changes. First, we'll check to see if the realm exists, else we can return because something went very wrong. Then we can create an observed countries property that's a live object that are all of the realm objects of this type country. And this is what we want to monitor for changes. So we can now say that country token is our observed countries and use the observe function which provides us with changes. Now we don't really need to know what kind those changes are. So we'll just use an underscore here. But we will be updating our published countries property to be the observed countries that it has changed. And since we're in a closure, we'll need to specify self. And to be careful that we don't create a retain cycle, we'll use weak self and change this to self ? And then in our initializer, we can call this function that sets up the observer. Well, we can start to use this now. Returning now to countries list view, we'll need to either comment out or remove those lines of code that are related to the property wrapper and replace them with properties and functions from our Realm Manager class that's in our environment. So first things first. Let's retrieve an instance of the Realm Manager from the environment, and we'll just call it Realm Manager. We can fix the preview from complaining too. You can use any name for the name of this preview realm because the preview doesn't use the realm from our simulator. It has its own, so it doesn't have to be example 3. And while we're at it, I want to change the name of this content view preview to countries list previews. I should have done that in the previous video. Well, we'll now have access to the Realm Manager countries array. So let's comment out this observed results property, and we're not going to use it anymore. Now, since our realm countries observed results is optional, it will also mean that our countries array is optional too. So we'll need to use an if-let on it to unwrap the countries array before we can present our list. So let's collapse our list row now and do that. This animation here now is watching for changes on the Realm Manager.countries property. Let's comment out these functions that are dependent on that observed results property. And there's one more thing that we need to change. Countries is now an array and not a results. So we can no longer use this sort on key path. We'll need to provide a sort on the countries array, so we can do that by sorting by name using $0.name is less than $1.name to sort it alphabetically, ascending. If we build down, we see that we have no errors. Let's run and see if we still get our list of countries. Indeed we do. And we can still go and take a look at those cities and see that it's still working as before. But can we update? Well, let's see. Let's change the name of Canada. Look at this. Our first problem has now been solved. When we look at the Cities tab, the name of the countries has been updated. Let's change that back again and keep going. We'll need to be able to add and delete countries too. To add a country, we'll need to write our own realm method. And I highly recommend that you go to the Swift SDK on the Realm site. I'll leave a link in the description below. It's here where you'll find out how I learned how to write this code. Make sure that you explore all of the links on the site. There are lots of examples to work with. Let's return then to Realm Manager and create an add function. When we add a new country, all we need to do is to create a new country object. Now in this solution, when we create a new country, we just use the defaults, which is an empty string for the name and a white flag and an empty list of cities. And this is where our observer comes in. It'll recognize that new entry into the realm and will automatically trigger the updates to happen, which will refresh our published property and thus our countries array, which is that computed property. So to create a new country, let's create a function called add that has one parameter called country that is of type country. And then we can do an if-let check to see if our realm has been instantiated. And then use a do-catch block to write to our realm using the realm's add function. If it fails, then we can print out an error. Anytime we update a realm, we need to invoke a write function. Now we can return to our countries list view, and where we commented out our add function in our add button, we can call this new Realm Manager's add function, passing in that new instance of country with the defaults. Let's give this a test and run our app. Let's add a new country. How about France? Let's choose the French flag. Let's see if adding a city works. How about Paris? It's looking good. I see the cities in the tab view as well. If we stop and run again, we can see that it's persisted. Perfect. On to deletion. We know that the country has a list of cities that before, when we deleted a country, those cities were left behind. So we need to do some more functions. One, to delete first all of the cities in a country, and then be able to delete that country that has an empty list of cities. So first, delete the country. I'll create a new function called remove that will, like the add function, have one parameter, the object to be removed. We will need to know specifically which country that is in our country table in Realm. So first we'll unwrap Realm with an if-let. Next, we can find that specific country to delete using an if-let and make it equal to the realm object of that type, country.self, for the primary key, which is the country.id. So it's going to match up in our realm the country that has the same ID as the one that we passed in. And then, because we're going to be updating our realm, we need to use a do-catch block with a realm write function. And then all we do is use the realm delete that country to delete. And if it fails, we'll print out another error. Now before we delete that country though, let's write a function that'll delete all of the cities for that country. So we'll create a function called delete cities that has one argument for country, which is country. And this is actually pretty easy to do. First, we unwrap Realm as before, and then write a do catch block again where we try to write to the Realm. And then we can call the delete function, but this time we use the initializer that deletes the list object, and that's our countries.cities. And if that fails, we can print out the error. Returning to the countries list view now then, we can use that same function that we created before, where we commented out the offending code. First, we'll select the country that is coming from our Realm Manager's countries array that has been sorted by name, as in our list presentation, and we want the one that's found at that index. Next then, we can delete all of our cities in our cities table by calling the delete cities function for that selected country. And then finally then, we can call the remove function for that selected country. And let's remove this commented out code first, and we can go back to the top and remove this property for presenting the alert, which is no longer necessary. And let's also remove this commented out observed results property. Now there's one more thing that we're going to have to do, else our app may crash. An object won't persist in a results object if it's been deleted. And that's the whole idea of a results object. It's a live connection to objects, and if objects are added, changed, or removed, the results object reflects that. However, if an object has been deleted and you're holding a reference to it as we are here, it'll be marked as invalidated, which is different than what's in the results object. So we'll need to check to see if it's invalidated and then present the list, and only create our view if it is. And if you don't do that, the app will crash as it can't present a row that doesn't exist. So we'll surround our row view with an if not country is invalidated. And it looks like I forgot to remove the actual alert, so let's do that too. So let's test it out. Here's our country, France, that has one city, and we can see that in the Cities tab. So let's return to the Countries tab and delete France. If we return to the Cities tab, I see that it's gone here too. Only one more thing to do, and that's to add back the search functionality on the Countries tab. Let's implement that search functionality now. So first, I'm going to cut this search filter private property out of the Countries list view class and put it in as a published property in our Realm Manager class. We'll have to make sure that we remove that private. Next, I'll need a new computed property that will be our search results as an array of country. And that will be the results of filtering our countries array where that name contains the search filter. If the search filter is empty, we'll return the countries array in full. Else, we'll return the countries array filtered where it matches the iterator's name property that contains the search filter. Now I want to enhance this though to handle the upper and lower case. So we'll change each of these to lowercase on both sides of the comparison. Back in the countries list view then, we can change the array that we're looping through from the Realm Manager.countries to the Realm Manager.search results. Let's uncomment our searchables now and fix it up. And it looks like I placed that closing bracket on the if let for the countries check too far up, so I'll need to move this block of code up within the if clause. The text is now just Realm Manager.searchFilter, and there's no collection or key path. Everything else is the same. So let's test. If we tap on Search and search for USA as lowercase letters, I now get a match. And just to double check everything, I can delete both the remaining countries without any issue and see that all of those cities have been removed as well. Well, that's it. We've updated our project to fix the limitations that we discovered when using just property wrappers, and we only modified this one view. The other views are still managed by property wrappers, so you can use the best of both worlds. Well, I hope these 3 projects over 5 videos have helped you understand how Realm operates in a SwiftUI environment. It's very powerful, but not without its quirks. And I ran into a lot of issues when preparing this video around invalidated objects, so you'll have to be careful and test your code completely. Make sure you read the documentation that Realm provides and go through their sample code. That's how you're going to learn and be able to capitalize on the functionality. Thanks for watching.